Are you thinking of planning a trip to Disney World in 2021? Well, I've got a list of very important considerations to keep in mind as you plan your next Disney World vacation. Hey there, welcome back to The Magic in the Music. I'm Jen, and I am here to help you get ready for your next Disney World vacation. Now, many of you are wondering if 2021 is the right time to head back to Disney World. Well, I've got some important considerations for you. Some of them are obvious ones, and some of them are not so obvious, and it's really important that you think about all of these things before you book that next trip. So let's get right to it. We would love to know if you are planning a trip to Disney World in 2021. Tell us in the comments what you're thinking about for your next Disney vacation. The first thing on my list is travel restrictions. And this is a bit of a bummer, but there are certain places where you are not allowed to freely travel yet, or you have to follow certain guidelines. So if you are international, if you are outside of the country, if you are traveling from a different state to Florida, you may have certain rules about needing to get a COVID test before you return home, or you may not even be allowed to travel to Disney right now. So those are things that you're going to need to do your research on before you begin booking your Disney trip. You certainly wouldn't want to get all excited about the trip and then discover that you're not even allowed to go. Now, another piece of this is that we have discovered in the last year that some employers have actually placed restrictions as well on travel. So just be sure that you know exactly what guidelines and rules are going to apply to you before you begin the process of planning your next trip. Okay, the next thing, and this is a big one that a lot of people talk about, the safety protocols that are currently happening at Disney. There are quite a few different things that are going on at Disney to keep you safe in the theme parks and reduce the risk of spreading disease. So the biggest one that people talk about is that they are wearing face masks. And we have been in 2020. We went in July of 2020. And so we have had the experience of wearing face masks all day in the park in the summer. We went in July, like I mentioned. And so we know what that's like, and we've kind of experienced it. For a lot of us, we are so used to wearing face masks now, it's really not a big deal. But there are some people who still struggle with it or are uncomfortable with it. So that's something you need to really keep in mind. Are you comfortable wearing the face mask all day long? Is everyone in your party comfortable? Are they all able to? Because there are no exceptions given at Disney at this time. So you really have to think about that. Also, my recommendation for you is if you are not comfortable wearing a face mask, maybe you don't have a face mask that fits you properly or is a material that is comfortable on you. We experimented with a lot of different designs and materials until we found things that were really comfortable for us to wear, because when you have a great fitting mask that is right for you, you won't even notice that you're wearing it. And that's kind of where we've gotten to that point. So you'll want to do that before you go to Disney in 2021. And will they be wearing face masks the entire time in 2021? Will they be required? Yes, I think you absolutely have to plan on that. Disney has pretty much indicated that all of this year that will be the case. So if you want to go in 2021, you'll be wearing a face mask. Another thing that Disney is doing in terms of safety protocols is they are doing physical distancing. So they are keeping people 6 feet apart in all the queues, in all of the areas where people might line up or congregate. If there's something that you might watch, there'll be dots on the ground and there'll be lines in all the queues. And so this is something we've really become used to even at home. So that's really not that big a deal. It just spreads things out a lot more. Another change to your experience is that there are now some partitions and things on the rides. There are barriers between certain areas in the queue with plexiglass. And so, I guess you could say that's a little bit less magical, but it's an important safety feature. So that's something that you will be seeing if you go to Disney. When we went in July, they had not installed partitions for the most part in the rides. They were just loading fewer people in the vehicles. But now they're trying to make an effort to get more people onto the rides. And so some of the rides like Kilimanjaro Safaris and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, they actually have different kind of transparent partitions, which you can see through, but there might be certain people who don't care for that type of ride experience. If you're like us and you're filming a lot of it, that really could mess up your experience. So that's another thing to consider. All around Disney, you will find hand washing stations and ample hand sanitizer, although I personally don't love the Disney hand sanitizer, but it's there and it's easy to use. You will also be doing a temperature check at the entrance to every theme park. We had no problem with this even in the summer, but just be aware that it is something that's going to be happening. At all of the dining locations, there will be tables that are blocked off and cannot be used so that we can create appropriate spacing between different parties. And so what that does is, in effect, is it lowers the capacity of each of the dining locations. So it's a little bit harder to get the reservation you want, and you just need to be aware that things are going to be more spread out like that. Okay, another really big one that most people have heard about is that in 2021, you need to have a park reservation in order to enter a Disney theme park. For most times of the year, this is not going to be a big issue, and there are separate allotments for ticket holders, resort guests, and annual pass holders. And it's really quite easy. If you have a ticket, you'll be able to book it for the entire length of your ticket. If you're going at a time that is not super busy, this is no problem because you'll be able to get all the park reservations you want. However, there are certain times during the year where they have started to kind of sell out the park reservations. They've booked up completely. So you do need to be aware of that. I would not recommend having a spontaneous trip because there might not be any availability for you to get into the parks of your choice. Another important thing to know about Disney World in 2021 is that some of the attractions, shows, restaurants, and different things are closed right now. Even some of the resorts are still closed. So you would hate to go in and say, well, my favorite thing in the whole world is the Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular, and my trip will be incomplete without it, and then get there and discover, well, it's not operational right now. So you're going to want to get on the Disney website, and you're going to want to check their reclosure or refurbishment schedule. You're going to want to check and just see what is operational and what is not. A really easy way to do this in terms of rides is if you just hop on the My Disney Experience app and you go onto the app and then you look at the wait times for the rides just during normal park operating hours. You can actually see what is there and what is not there. So that's kind of an easy, quick way for you to reference that. But just be aware that all the things that you're used to, they're not all happening. You are not going to see the Festival of Fantasy Parade. You are not going to see illuminations. You are not going to see Happily Ever After, the fireworks shows, and some of those castle, the projection shows. It's not all there, unfortunately, right now, and that is a big bummer. Another thing that's not happening are character meet and greets. So they will have character cavalcades. You'll be able to see characters and wave at them and take photos of them, but you're not going to be able to go up and hug Mickey Mouse. And if that's going to make or break your trip, then you better really think about that. Disney dining plan. Some of you love the Disney dining plan. People who are into it, they're really, really into it. We are not really Disney dining plan people. It's not what our family does. But if it's important to you, unfortunately, Disney dining plan is not currently available. The program has been temporarily suspended. It may come back. We don't know. But as far as we know, in 2021, it looks like the Disney dining plan is not available. Another thing that's going to happen in 2021 is that you might have to wait in line for things that you don't normally wait in line for. And a perfect example of this would be when we went, parks were at very low capacity and there were not a lot of people in the theme park, yet because of physical distancing, we had to stand in line quite a while to get into the confectionery on Main Street. We had to stand in line for a little bit to get into the Emporium on Main Street. Popular shops and things like that, you may actually have to queue up to get in. They're going to count how many people are inside, and they have to keep people spaced apart. The same thing may be the case for transportation, where we used to be able to cram onto a bus. Now there are only so many zones we can seat people in. You may have to wait for the next bus. You may have to wait for the next monorail. The Skyliner is one of the only ones that's had little impact from this. They don't put parties together in each Skyliner gondola now, but to be honest with you, that only happened a fraction of the time anyway. But just the bottom line is you are going to wait longer for some of those normal things that maybe you didn't have to have a queue at all before. So just be aware of that. Oh, this is a big one we experienced when we went to Disney World this past year, and it's that the queues will look kind of intimidating, and so you need to not be frightened by that. So because of the physical distancing, all of the queues are taking up at least double the amount of space that they used to. So an example is Peter Pan's flight right now. If you are in the queue for Peter Pan's flight, even just a normal length queue is spilling out all the way into Columbia Harbor House, which is currently closed. And so you're actually snaking all the way through this food service location so that there is enough space for everyone to be separated and spaced apart. Just keep in mind that generally we are hearing that the actual wait times are mostly tending to be lower than the posted wait time. So don't be frightened by those long queues. They could look really frightening, and I don't want you to walk in and say, oh my gosh, what did we do? This was such a mistake. And the queue for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway is all over the courtyard. Well, it's going to be, because they can't put very many people inside the building right now. Everything's going to look that way. Okay, this one's not exciting, but you need to do it. And it's really important. You need to check your healthcare coverage. You need to make sure, if you are not a Florida local, you need to look at what your healthcare coverage and what your options are for healthcare. This is something that people tend to neglect, even just for normal vacations, even when it's not a global pandemic. People don't really think about this, and we know from experience that if you have an emergency when you're away on vacation, it can get very, very expensive. We had a situation where one of our children needed stitches. We ended up in an emergency room, and it's outside of our region and our network for our healthcare provider, and it got very, very expensive very quickly. Is it very likely that you're going to become ill if you go to Florida? No, I don't think that's a really, really high risk, but it is possible. And so you would need to have a plan and think through, what would I do if I went to Disney and if I or someone in my party became ill while they were there, and then could not, if you were flying, perhaps could not get on a plane to go home? Those are questions we had to ask ourselves before we decided to get on the plane and go to Florida, because we live way too far to travel by car. So those are things we had to ask. If this happened, what would we do? Do we have someone in the region that we could go and stay with? Is it safe to stay with that person? Would we be endangering their health if we did that? What is our insurance coverage? What would be our financial responsibilities if we had to go to the hospital or the ER? What urgent cares are available? And if you're international, this is a really important thing, because we have a private healthcare system. And so you really need to make sure. I think a lot of people actually get certain insurance that covers that. And also a lot of travel insurance policies, they'll have certain contingencies for healthcare as well. So you definitely want to know what your situation is before you head out on that vacation. Okay, yet another thing that has changed during a global pandemic is that your trip insurance situation and policy and rules may be a little bit different than they used to be. So we are Disney Vacation Club members, so we always purchase the trip insurance for our DVC points, and that's a certain policy. And we know that some of the policies we purchased before COVID were fully covering anything that was COVID related, but then some of the ones purchased after that might have some limitations. So you need to take a close look at that, read the fine print, maybe even call. And of course, it's a great time to really think about getting travel insurance. It's not something we tended to do in the past, but ever since we had a medical emergency on a trip, now we think it's a great idea. Now, some changes in timing. If you are planning your Disney World trip in 2021, there are some big changes in the timeline of planning. The first big change is that you cannot make advanced dining reservations 180 days out anymore. And some of you are probably really happy. This has actually been switched to 60 days, which is just like how Disneyland always was. You were used to having your fast passes booked at 60 days, and guess what? Fast passes, they are gone for now. We don't know if fast passes are coming back, and I know some of you are cheering because you hated them and they killed the spontaneity of your trip. And some of you are sad because you like knowing for sure you're going to get on Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, and you know it 60 days in advance, and that makes you feel better about the trip. So I can understand both perspectives, but the fact of the matter is, fast passes are not currently happening. So at the 60-day mark, instead, you're going to be making any advanced dining reservations that you wish to get. Also, keep in mind that it's a lot harder to get advanced dining reservations now because capacities are lower in all of the dining areas, in all of the restaurants. Set reasonable expectations for that. You may not get everything that you want. Okay, finally we get onto a happy thing about 2021. This is happy and fun. And it's that there are a couple of really fun, exciting things happening at Disney World in 2021. The big one is it is the 50th anniversary of the opening of Disney World on October 1st, 2021. And there are a lot of really big Disney fans who have been waiting for this for a long time and planning to be there on that particular date. So if you are a hardcore Disney fan and you want to be there, book your reservation right now. Don't hesitate. immediately go and book your reservation and make sure that you can be there, because park reservations for October 1st are actually already gone. Now, if you are not really hot on being in the park on the actual anniversary date and it doesn't matter to you, which I'm fine with not being there, then that's fine. I would rather avoid crowds. If you're like me, then go anytime that is not right at the 50th anniversary. So October 1st, and I would say the week around that, kind of the few days before and then the week after, I would absolutely avoid that time. It's going to be a very popular time. And something else special that is happening for that 50th anniversary celebration is Remy's Ratatouille Adventure is going to be opening on the same day, October 1st of 2021. They're going to be opening his brand new attraction, which has actually been kind of imported over from Disneyland Paris. And you'll be opening up that new section of that extended area in the France Pavilion at Epcot. So that's going to be really exciting. A lot of people are going to be coming in for that. I would not be surprised if Disney announced some other small kind of things that they're going to debut at that same time. So again, it's going to be crowded. If it's important to you to be there, get your stuff booked. If it's not important for you to be there then and you want to avoid crowds, avoid that time. Now, I personally predict that it's going to get busier after that time. Once we hit October 1st, I think in 2021, the crowd levels are going to increase as we head into December. So just be aware of that. I would say if you want the very lightest crowds for the remainder of 2021, I would shoot for late August, early September, right in that back to school kind of time. I think that's going to be the best time, because a lot of people who might have had trips in September and found out about the new offerings coming on October 1st, they might have pushed their trips back a little bit. That's the sweet spot. If you don't have to see those new things, then that's where I think you're going to find the lowest crowds. Now, if you want more tips about when to find the best time to travel in 2021, I would highly recommend that you jump on over to touringplans.com. I am not paid by them. I have no relationship with Touring Plans other than the fact that I am a super fan, and I love, love, love Touring Plans, and we've used them for years. We've had a subscription with them for years, and it is worth every penny. So, Len Testa, call me. I love Touring Plans. It is awesome. Well, that's it, folks. The most important things you need to know when planning your Disney vacation in 2021. We hope you have a wonderful time, and whenever you do go back to Disney, we want it to be magical and amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. And remember, there's magic in the music. Bye, everybody. Looking for more Disney, music, DVC, or family fun? Click the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you're notified every time we upload a new video. Thanks for watching.